Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card video. Today's card is a one-layer card, and I also drew and colored in on the envelope. I'm using this Monster Fun set by Gerda Steiner Designs. It's the same one, the same company that did that gopher set that I love so much. It's got such cute sentiments and these cute little monsters. So I'm going to start by stamping the sentiment at the bottom with some Hero Arts black ink. This is just some Neenah Solar White cardstock. I'm going to use a 0.3 Copic liner because it's a Copic safe marker. I'm using a T-square to draw a straight line. I did the sentiment first because I sort of wanted to build up the card from there. So I'm drawing this other line. It's about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit wider. I'm having to go over it a couple of times because I think my marker is running out of ink. I'm going to have to replace it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is draw some kind of curve. So I'm going to do 3 curves at a time, leave some space, and then do 3 more curves. I'm going to try to keep the curves pretty consistent, but you can see they're not exactly all the same, but that's sort of part of doodling. It's supposed to look hand-drawn. All right, once I get those lines drawn, I'm going to color in one of these segments with this same exact marker. And I'm going to color the bottom in solid, and then I'm going to flick upwards, very similar to what I do with my Copic markers. So you can see I colored the bottom, then I'm flicking upwards so that I get kind of a lighter feathered top as it's going up. It is a fine-tipped pen, so it's not going to look like you've brushed it. It's going to definitely look stripy and streaky, but that's okay. This is done a lot in Zentangling. So I'm going to do the whole bottom, and then I'm going to flip this over so that I can flick upward. I just find that it's easiest to flick upward, and I'm going to do the same thing along the edge on the top and working toward the middle. And you can see I'm also kind of curving my lines a little bit as I head toward the middle of these bars, just so that I could stay in the lines of kind of the flow of these curves. And the whole reason why they're curved is so it makes it look like this is sort of a pipe that's rounded. All right, so once I'm done with the black coloring, I'm going to go ahead and stamp my monster and the cupcake. I'm going to use my Stamp-A-Majig because I want to make sure that the bottom of his feet are exactly on top of this bar. So the way to do that is to just use the Stamp-A-Majig, because sometimes it's hard to see exactly where the lines are when you're stamping, and this will leave nothing to chance. So I'm going to stamp it down there, and then I'm also going to do the same thing. So you prep the plastic sheet, and then you put your handle back into place once you've positioned it on your cardstock, and then go straight down and straight up. Okay, now I'm going to work on this bar here. Now I apologize, it is a tiny bit blurry. I think I was a little bit too close for my camera, but you can still see everything that's going on. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my G09, and I'm going to color the very top and the very bottom of this bar. And this is where it's rounding out, and so it's going to be the darkest where it kind of hits the edge of this pipe. So you can see I'm not really coloring, I'm just sort of drawing a line. And now I'm going to take my middle color, this G14, and I'm going to go about halfway on top, halfway off in the same width as I did the first line. And so I'm kind of covering half of the dark green and extending it out another little bit with this marker. And again, the top and the bottom both. And I kind of sketch it in. So kind of a little short line. So I'm not doing one straight line across because I do want to blend it a little bit. And by doing multiple lines, I'm sort of getting a little bit more color on my cardstock. And then finally, I'm going to take my G12, it's just a light green color, and I'm going to do the same exact thing, and I'm going to leave a very, very tiny white line in between. So it's just kind of that ultimate reflection of the pipe where the light reflection hits the area that's closest to you. That white line in between the greens should be even with the lightest part of where I colored that black segment. So where the two parts that I colored meet in the middle, that's about where the white strip needs to be. So I'm doing this in sections to make sure that I get a better blend because the cardstock stays wet for a little bit longer. While I've got my green markers out, I'm going to color the horns of this monster. I'm going to just start on the outside with the darkest and kind of move my way a little bit at a time toward the middle. All right, now before, I have one more thing to do on this pipe, and that's in the white area. So I'm going to take a C2, which is a cool gray, very light gray. I'm just going to add a few little dots at the very edge because you're going to get a little bit of a shadow even though it's white. To create texture in my monster fur, I'm going to do a lot of flicking. So I'm going to start with my darkest purple, and I'm flicking upwards. And so I'm rotating my paper, and you can see I'm curving it a little bit as I get toward his arm, and I'm just going around the whole entire outer edge, and as I get to the bottom, I'm flicking upwards toward his stomach, and then as I move to the edge, I'm flicking still toward his stomach, and I'm really doing the entire outside edge of the monster first. So you can see I'm curving a little bit as I go around the edge until I get to his arm again. Because his arms are in front of his body, there's going to be a shadow behind his arms, which is why I'm adding this same dark color, flicking toward the middle of his body, right on the inside of his arms. And then there's also going to be a shadow where his bottom lip is kind of protruding forward. So I'm going to put some dark in that area. Okay, now I'm moving on to my medium color, and I'm following the exact same pattern. I'm starting about halfway into my darkest color and extending it outward, and then I'm also extending it a little bit further into his belly area. But I'm using the same motions, and I'm coloring the same areas and just extending that out from the darkest area toward the center. And I'm also going to color his left arm a little bit on the inside. You'll see in a second. Again, going through all the dark areas I already colored. And right here where I added just a little bit, because you will see a little bit of a shadow there. Okay, finally, I'm going to move on to my lightest color. And this is where it's a little bit different in that I'm starting on the opposite side in most cases. So you can see I'm starting where the white is, and I'm moving in the opposite direction with my lightest color. But here on his belly, I'm going to do the same thing I did with the medium color, which is start about halfway into the medium color and just extend that color out. But I do want to leave a little bit of white in the middle just because it looks a little bit fluffy and kind of silky, I think, that way. And then I've got my last area here, and that's my BV01, and that's my lightest color. Sorry, I moved the markers out of the way there. Now there's one more step, and you can leave this out if you want, but this is going to really add a ton of dimension. This is BV08. It's an extremely dark color, like almost black. And I'm just going to add some dots. I like to use dots just because it allows me to have a really light hand with the color. And I'm going to put some dark right behind his arms, because that's where there's going to be a heavy shadow because his arms are in front of his body. So I'm going to go all the way around his arms. And then another area I wanted to add more shadow was where his the bottom lip is sort of coming out. And so the more shadow I add there, the more it's going to look like it's coming out, like more of a monster sort of look. So I added some more dots there. And then I also added some on the side where his head kind of comes in a little bit. I thought there'd be a nice shadow there. So I added some BV08 there. Now the next step, you can see I did very, very little. But once I add the BV04 and then the BV02, I just added those two, extending the BV08 outward so that it blends. It just doesn't look like I added some dots. You can really see that it made a huge difference in making those arms pop out, making his bottom lip pop out, and making his head a little bit shapelier. All right, now the final coloring is his horns. I'm doing a Y15 and a Y11, just really simple to make them yellow. And then for the cupcake, I'm going to go back to those same greens I started with. I'm going to have the G09, the darkest color, and I'm going to color on the bottom edge of all of those cupcake icing lines. And then I'm going to come back in with the G14 and extend those lines out. And then finally I'll take the G12 and just color over the whole entire thing to blend them out. And for the wrapper, just some E44, then E43. You just use any kind of 3 brownish colors you have. And then I finished it off with the E40 in the middle. And that's all my coloring. So I'm going to cut this a 1/16 of an inch on all sides. And then I'm going to mat it to this green Stampin' Up! Paper. I think it's Cucumber Crush. It came in a pack, so I'm not totally sure. So I added some Wink of Stella to add some glitter, and then I took my white gel pen and I added some sprinkles, just kind of randomly drawing some lines all over the cupcake top. And that is the card. So I absolutely love this monster. He's so cute. And I love the sentiments. They're really different. Now I also took an envelope and I did the same pipe that I did on the card just so that they match. I thought it would be fun to receive. So anyway, that is the card for today. I hope you enjoyed it and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.